press conference between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and President Erdogan. Well, we're still waiting for holding the press conference between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, on the frame on the sideline of his state's visit to Egypt, in a delicate time, of course, in which we are witnessing, the whole region is witnessing great turbulences, and of course the situation in Gaza, in Sudan, in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, also the escalating situation in the Middle East between the U.S. and Iran, and of course after moving and deploying the U.S. troops in the Arabian Sea.
In the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious, Your Excellency, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, President of the Turkish Republic, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to extend my welcomes to His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Egypt with his accompanying delegation, and I would like to express my utmost gratitude for this visit, which is a great opportunity to continue our joint consultations, which is featured by a high degree of understanding regarding regional and international common interest files. This important visit comes in a critical time following the celebration last year of the 100th anniversary of relations between Egypt and Turkey, combined by long-term relations. We cherish these relations deeply, as our history intersects in many occasions. Both countries have always been keen on establishing peace and coexistence, which contributed to reinforcing bilateral cooperation, and it was crowned by establishing the Higher Council for strategic cooperation, as we have our second meeting today, stressing our keenness on strengthening frameworks of cooperation in all fields. I have convened with my brother, His Excellency President Erdogan, constructive talks as we tackled the positive developments in the cooperation path since the first meeting in Ankara, September 2024. Also, the results of the joint planning group headed by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of both countries in 2025. We have stressed the necessity of continuing constructive cooperation between Egypt and Turkey continuously during the upcoming period. We have directed to continue this cooperation following the same goals. We have also discussed the means of cooperation amounting to $9 billion, which makes Egypt the first trade partner for Turkey in Africa, as Turkey takes a very high rank in the Egyptian export line. We have also stressed the necessity of increasing this cooperation to $15 billion and facilitating the path forward to attract more investments in all economic cooperation fields. And we are hopeful that the business forum today, with a wide range participation by businessmen from both countries, to put this path forward, as well as signing a number of memoranda of understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, our region is witnessing accelerated developments and unprecedented disruptions, and it's evident now that the safety and security of the region is a collective responsibility that requires more coordination among the countries of the region to reach sustainable political solutions that tackle the deep-rooted causes to support stability and to ensure the development paths away from the intervention in the internal affairs of countries. In this regard, I have discussed with President Erdogan the Gaza development after the successful efforts led by Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey and the United States to reach the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement. We have praised the President Trump efforts, and we have stated that we need to stick to the establishment of this agreement in accordance with the UN relevant resolution. And we have stressed our constance in represented in the two-state solution and establishing a Palestinian state in accordance with the international legitimacy resolution supporting early recovery, reconstruction, and we have stressed the rejection to any efforts to tamper with the Trump peace plan, and we rejected to any tampering with the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. We have also rejected any settlements in the West Bank and violating the legal and historical status of Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sudanese crisis also was the center of our discussion, and we have discussed the need to reach a ceasefire and launching a political path that is comprehensive with preserving the state institutions in support of peace and security. I have discussed with President Erdogan of the Egyptian efforts to keep the Sudanese stability and integrity. We have also discussed the African Horn and Coast, and we stressed the necessity of maintaining the stability of this region. We have also discussed joint efforts for stability in Libya, and we agreed on the UN path in addition to the Libyan solution with respect to the state institutions. Also, Egypt is supporting the timely presidential elections and dismissing all mercenaries and relevant efforts. And we have also discussed Syria and Egypt supports the integrity and unity of Syria. We have welcomed the agreement between the government and the SDF, hoping to maintain the stability and integrity of Syrian lands, and we have tackled the sincere efforts led by Egypt and Turkey to de-escalate the situation in the region, pushing forward the diplomatic resolutions, whether when it comes to the Iranian file or the region in general. We have also tackled the international developments, especially the economic implications of the Ukrainian crisis. We have discussed food security and energy security. Ladies and gentlemen, our talks today have reflected a joint approach by Egypt and Turkey to tackle all international and regional files. We have agreed upon the necessity of keeping cooperation and coordination in all fields, and we look forward to the third Higher Council of Strategic Cooperation meeting in Turkey 2027. I would like to renew my welcomes to His Excellency President Erdogan and his keenness, and express our keenness to continue cooperation with him to establish the pillars of peace and development in the region. Allow me now to invite His Excellency the President to deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Aziz kardeşim.
In the name of Allah, most merciful, most gracious.
Heyetlerimizin kıymetli üyeleri, değerli basın mensupları, sizlere en kalbi duygularımla, muhabbetle selamlıyorum. Esselamu Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu. İlk toplantısını 2024 yılı Eylül ayında Ankara'da gerçekleştirdiğimiz Yüksek Düzeyli Stratejik İşbirliği Konseyimizin ikinci toplantısı vesilesiyle Kahire'de bulunmaktan büyük bir memnuniyet duyuyorum. Şahsıma ve heyetime gösterdikleri sıcak misafirperverlik için Sayın Sisi'ye ve bizleri büyük bir muhabbetle karşılayan Mısırlı kardeşlerime bir kez daha teşekkür ediyorum. 1000 yıllık ortak mazimizle yoğrulan kardeşlik bağlarımızdan sadece halklarımızın refahı için değil, Filistin'le birlikte bölgemizin istikrarına katkı için de faydalanmak istiyoruz. Sayın Sisi ile belirlediğimiz bu ortak vizyon sayesinde ilişkilerimizin her alanda daha ileri taşındığını memnuniyetle müşahede ediyoruz. Bakınız, Yüksek Düzeyli Stratejik İşbirliği Konseyimizin ilk toplantısından bu yana yaklaşık 16 ayı geride bıraktık. Bu dönemde çeşitli vesilelerle Mısır'ı 2 kez ziyaret ettim. Dışişleri Bakanlarımız ise 7 defa bir araya geldiler. Diğer bakanlarımız ve üst düzey zevatımızı ekleyince karşılıklı ziyaret sayısı 50'ye yaklaşıyor. Bugün kabul ettiğimiz ortak bildiri ve muhtelif belgelerle inşallah ilişkilerimizin ahdi zeminini pekiştiriyoruz. Kıymetli basın mensupları, Mısır, Türkiye'nin Afrika'daki en büyük ticaret ortağı olmayı sürdürüyor. Son 3 yıldır 8 ila 9 milyar dolar aralığında seyreden ticaret hacmimizi 15 milyar dolara yükseltmeyi hedefliyoruz. Türk firmalarının Mısır'daki yatırımlarının 4 milyar dolara yaklaşmasından ziyadesiyle memnunuz. Bugün iş insanlarımızla bir araya geleceğimiz iş formunda karşılıklı yatırım
aim to establish an economic model
ele alacağız.
Where both countries are integrated and more strong in the face of the economic global volatility. And today in the business forum, as we meet businessmen, we are going to discuss means of joint cooperation and joint ventures in the field of energy. And I think that this is highly significant. And I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to reinforcing the reflected cooperation on the tourism sector, as we have received around 50,000 tourists from Egypt, and we are very pleased with the Egyptian people to attention to the Turkish language and culture. And that's why we consider reopening the Turkish Institute in Alexandria, and is very important in this perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, we have, as the two major countries, we have assessed and evaluated to the means to re-establish peace and stability in the region, as we have the longest coastal lines at the Eastern Mediterranean, and we have the desire to increase our cooperation in the field of free navigation and navigation security. And I think that these talks will contribute majorly in the joint interests of both countries. The Palestinian cause are always the main cause in our talks and agenda, and in spite of reaching a ceasefire agreement, the tragic situation in Gaza persists. In 29th of October, around 50,000 Gazans have lost their lives, and only last week 30 people were killed, including children, by the Israeli violations. We reject such violations aiming at disrupting the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement, and we are working together in initiatives to make a peace possible in Gaza. We are going to work hand in hand with Egypt for the Gaza reconstruction, and on this occasion I would like to renew my thanks today to the Egyptian authorities for the ongoing cooperation they have been demonstrating in giving access to humanitarian aid for the Gazan people. Ladies and gentlemen, our talks today have tackled the regional situations, most prominent of which Libya, Sudan, and the African Horn. Preserving the unity and integrity of the Libyan lands for a permanent peace is still a joint goal. And we agree as two brotherly countries to reinforce the operations led by us in Libya and in Sudan. We would like to see a ceasefire as soon as possible, and therefore a sustainable peace process. And as we continue our support for Somalia, we watch closely the situation and the developments taking place there, and we condemn the Israeli decision to recognize Somaliland, which directly aims at tampering with the Somalian integrity and sovereignty. We support the federal Somalia and the territorial integrity of the Somaliland. We support the shift in Syria, and we're determined to continue our support as we supported the Egyptian statements to preserve the Syrian territorial integrity, and we support when it comes to our neighboring country, Iran. We believe that any external intervention directed against Iran will be threat to the entire region.
diplomatik yollarla
And
çözüm
evidently, solving the Iranian issues, including the nuclear program, by diplomatic channels will be more effective and more sustainable. I would like to conclude my speech by thanking Mr. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and for the Egyptian officials for the warm hospitality once again. I hope that the resolutions agreed upon by the Higher Council for Strategic Cooperation to reinforce welfare and stability in the region will come to the ground. Thank you so much.